Let's look at how the LEVERS system uses a learning matrix to keep track of learner growth over time. LEVERS is built on the digital learning process, which says evidence equals artifact plus reflection plus validation. Because our projects are digital and they're done online in collaborative teams, the artifact itself is available online for reflection. The validation can be across different areas. Here we see the academic areas of digital fluency, English language arts, and mathematics, followed by the applied levels of competencies, actions, and evidence. To define what we mean here, the digital fluency standards include the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, as well as research and technology, operations, and concepts. For English language arts, we use the same claims that are used by the Common Core: reading, writing, speaking and listening, and research. For mathematics, we also use those claims: concepts and procedures, problem solving, communicating reasoning, models, and data analysis. We're going to expect to see evidence in each of these areas. But equally importantly, we expect to see evidence about the competencies. That's how these standards show up in the real world, is what people expect you to be able to do with those standards in settings that matter. And it's very important to know the actions that were taken, over what duration, what frequency, with what intensity. What was the work that was done to create the competencies? And finally, we need to validate that through evidence. What evidence is submitted? What's the documentation to show that these new competencies have actually been achieved? That's where the learning matrix comes in. So deploying these across a matrix, we can see the academic standards and a range of their combinations. You might start with absolutely no examples of academic progress, or they might be limited to single areas such as digital fluency, English language arts, or math as standalones. They may be in combination. You might be looking at how ELA shows up in the real world through digital fluency, or the same with mathematics. Or the traditional method is to look at ELA and math and don't even think about digital fluency. But in the best of all possible worlds, you have examples of all three. Similarly, with the applied competencies, you might have no examples, or you might simply have validations of test scores. You might have actions that you've taken that were not measured through test scores. You might have competencies where you've decided how the things you really care about show up in real life, or a combination of actions, validations, competencies, and actions. Or maybe you already know how to do something and you don't need to do any actions, you just need to show that you can do it. These are captured in the matrix. And so as we move from the lower left-hand corner, where in the most unfortunate of settings you have 0 indicators of progress, as you progress towards the upper right-hand corner, here are the areas where you would just be demonstrating standalone indicators. Combinations of them show up here, where you have 2 indicators. And so your examples will be deployed along this matrix according to what you're showing. In a graphical way, it lets you see very quickly what needs to be attended to and whether you're making progress. When you have examples across both areas in that green level, you're going to be at level 4, and really at the mastery level, you'll have 5 or more indicators. There being 1 for 6, where you have all 6 of both the academic and the applied. So let's see how this would work out in terms of actual people. Who would you hire given the following 3 profiles? In the first case, we have someone who's at an awareness level with digital fluency, has pretty highly developed English language arts, and solid mathematics. This would be a good student in most schools. As far as how these apply to real life, the competencies are just at an awareness level. There's some actions taken, but they have not generated any evidence. So that's one person to think of. Let's contrast that with the second example. In this example, we can see more highly developed digital fluency, the other academics are the same, and a greater sense of the competency goals, and actually a beginning of awareness of how to get that evidence. So let's take that and contrast it with this situation, where somebody has highly advanced digital fluency and has matched that highly advanced English language arts with that, and has taken the steps and created the examples for their competency, actions, and evidence. Who would you hire? But what if it's the same person? The difference is what they've done over time and how much time it took. So we can see this in the matrix. In the first situation, the person began with only ELA scores as their evidence, no other evidence of validation. Taking the advice that was shown, they began researching digital fluency competencies that used the strengths of their ELA. And at the last stage, have already produced actions to generate the evidence of their ability to marry the DF, the digital fluency, and the ELA. Now, it would be interesting to know whether this happened over the course of a week, or one project, or two projects. That's what the LearningMatrix will allow us to do. As people interact with the LEVERS system, they're going to be able to track their own progress and try to see that upward trend towards the upper right-hand corner, regardless of where they begin with what competencies and what standards they've already mastered. You're in charge of your own learning, and I hope that the LEVERS system helps you to become successful in doing that. Thank you very much.